Humans are pretty good at sinking ships. In fact, so good that the United Nations estimates that there are 3 million wrecked along the ocean floor, many of which date back thousands of years. So we've rounded up 15 top bizarre shipwrecks that will make you marvel at the ingenuity of humans, ponder the mysteries of history, and even experience submechanophobia, a fear of fully or partially submerged man-made objects. But we're just kidding. Anyway, let's dive into the list. Number 15. SS Yongala. The SS Yongala was a 357-foot steamship. It went down in a cyclone off Cape Bowling Green in 1911 and earned its nickname the Aussie Titanic. All 122 unlucky passengers get sunken into the ocean, and the wreck remains undiscovered for over 50 years. The bizarre part, there were no human remains, but one did make it to shore. Moonshine, a prized racehorse. Well, imagine surviving a raging storm only to end up as the most ominous beach discovery in history. In 1994, divers found human remains inside the hull, prompting Australia to say the wreck a grave site, off limits for entry. But that hasn't stopped it from becoming a world-class dive site. Located in the Coral Sea, just off the Great Barrier Reef, the Yongala is teeming with marine life. Think turtles, rays, sharks, and an absurd variety of fish. Open water certified divers can explore this eerie time capsule where nature has turned tragedy into an underwater paradise. It remains one of Australia's worst peacetime maritime disasters, just one with really good scenery. Number 14. The World Trade Center ship. In 2010, nearly a decade after the September 9/11 attacks, construction crews clearing debris at Ground Zero hit something unexpected. 22 feet below Manhattan's surface, buried in time, lay the remains of an 18th century ship. A wreck under one of modern history's greatest tragedies? Well, that's some next-level historical layering. Scientists traced the ship's origins to 1773. Its timbers came from the same white oak trees used to build Independence Hall, where the Declaration of Independence was signed. The vessel was likely built in Philadelphia, America's shipbuilding capital at the time. But how did it get buried under what would become the World Trade Center? According to some guys, the area was once underwater, and historians believe the ship was intentionally sunk and used as a landfill to extend the Manhattan coastline. Others suggest it simply met its untimely end and got swallowed by the city's rapid expansion. Either way, it's a time capsule from the Revolutionary era, hiding beneath one of history's most tragic sites. Number 13. The Mary Rose. For over 30 years, the Mary Rose was the pride of England's Navy, a warship built to dominate the seas. It was launched in 1511, and let's say she was one of the first to feature gun ports, allowing devastating broadsides. But in 1545, during a battle against the French, she suddenly capsized within view of King Henry VIII. Around 400 men went down with her, and historians are still unsure why. Some blame a gust of wind, others a miscalculated maneuver. The wreck sat untouched for over 400 years before being rediscovered in the 1970s. In 1982, a massive effort was made to raise half the ship, which is now preserved in Portsmouth's Mary Rose Museum. Archaeologists uncovered thousands of Tudor-era artifacts, offering an eerie glimpse into life aboard a 16th century warship. The cause of this beauty sinking remains a mystery, but she's become a historical treasure, one of the best preserved time capsules of the Age of Sail. Number 12. Edward Bollin. Now, if this is not bizarre, we don't know what it is then. A shipwreck in the middle of the desert? It sounds like a hallucination attack, but Edward Bollin is very real and you can see it. This German cargo steamer ran aground on Namibia's Skeleton Coast in 1909 after getting lost in thick fog. Today, its rusted remains sit almost a mile inland, thanks to the relentless advance of the desert. The Skeleton Coast, as we all know, is super notorious for wrecking ships, earning its name from the countless vessels and whale bones scattered along its shores. But few shipwrecks are as visually striking as the Edward Boleyn. It looks like it sailed straight into the sands. If you want to see it, it is not an easy feat. You'll need special permits, a strong guide, and a rugged car, and most people only see it from the air. But those who make the journey witness a bizarre scene. A ghostly ship, swallowed by time, where the ocean once was, but the desert now rules. Number 11. Jenny Lind. In 1850, the Jenny Lind struck a submerged reef 300 miles off Australia's coast, leaving its 28 crew members stranded on a tiny, desolate sandbank. With no outside help, they faced a grim reality. These dudes had just two options: build a way out or die trying. For 37 days, they scavenged the wreck, crafting a makeshift boat from its timbers. Against all Zeusy odds, they successfully sailed 370 miles to safety in Moreton Bay. Every crew member survived. Their ordeal became legendary, proving that determination and a bit of carpentry can beat the odds. The ridge that doomed the Jenny Lind, later named Ken Reefs, became infamous for wrecking ships. By 1857, it was already described as strewn with wrecks, and modern estimates suggest it has claimed at least 8 vessels. But unlike others lost to the reef, Jenny Lind's crew beat the ocean at its own game, turning disaster into an incredible survival story. Number 10. The Titanic of the South. Dubbed the Titanic of the South, the SS Waratah was a luxury passenger liner designed for voyages between Britain and Australia. It was the Tyler Swift of its time, but from the start, sailors whispered concerns. It felt top-heavy and sluggish. In July 1909, the Waratah set sail from Durban, bound for Cape Town. Then, it vanished without a trace. No distress calls, no wreckage. There was nothing. A few ships spotted it on its final journey, with one sailor noting unusual amounts of smoke. Another later recalled seeing 2 bright flashes at sea, but dismissed them as coastal bushfires. Decades of searching have failed to locate the wreck, spawning theories from rogue waves to spontaneous combustion. In 1999, researchers thought they had found it, only to realize it was a different sunken vessel. To this day, no one knows what happened to the Waratah, making it one of the greatest maritime mysteries of all time. Number 9. Baichimo. The Baichimo was built in 1914, and it spent years hauling fur pelts across the Arctic. But in 1931, while trapped in ice near Alaska, its crew abandoned it, only for it to vanish into thin air. At first, they assumed it had sunk, but an Inuit hunter later spotted it drifting miles away. When the crew tracked it down, it was too damaged to sail, so they salvaged what they could and left, thinking it would soon sink. Except, it never did. Over the next 3 decades, the Baichimo was seen roaming Arctic waters, sometimes trapped in ice, sometimes mysteriously free. Sailors, hunters, and even explorers reported encounters. The last confirmed sighting was in 1962 when a group of Inupiats saw it drifting off the Alaskan coast. Despite multiple search expeditions, it was never found again. Some believe it's frozen in a glacier, others think it finally sank. Either way, the Baichimo became a legend, an Arctic ghost ship lost to time. Number 8. Patriot. The Patriot was built for speed. Originally a pilot boat, it became a privateer during the War of 1812, raiding British ships with ease. By December 1812, it had been repurposed for civilian use, setting sail for New York on December 30th. On board was Theodosia Burr Alston, daughter of Aaron Burr and wife of South Carolina's governor. A British patrol stopped the Patriot on January 2nd, suspicious of its hasty repaint and hidden cannons. Yet, after inspection, they let it continue. It never arrived. And just like anything humans can't explain or understand, rumors exploded. Some blamed pirates, with men on their deathbeds later claiming they looted the ship and killed everyone aboard. But the most logical theory? A brutal storm. British records confirm a powerful system struck the area on January 2nd to 3rd, right where the Patriot would have been. Despite centuries of speculation, the ship and Theodosia remain lost to the Atlantic. Number 7. Andrea Doria. By the 1950s, the SS Andrea Doria was one of the most elegant and well-engineered ocean liners afloat. With 11 watertight compartments, it was built to survive anything, except colliding headfirst with another ship. On July 25, 1956, the Doria was steaming toward New York when it met the Stockholm, a Swedish liner sailing off course. Both captains saw each other on radar but misread their distances. By the time they got a visual through the thick fog, it was too late. The Stockholm's icebreaker bow punched 30 feet into the Andrea Doria, instantly killing dozens. Well, we feel pretty sad for them. The Doria listed so hard it couldn't launch lifeboats, but a big rescue operation saved most passengers. By morning, the luxury liner was gone, swallowed by the Atlantic. The wreck still lies off Nantucket, a haunting dive site known as the Mount Everest of shipwrecks, and we'll probably never know which captain truly sealed its fate. Number 6. Zebrina. The Zebrina, a British sailing barge, left Falmouth in September 1917 with a shipment of coal for France. Just 2 days later, it was found adrift near Cherbourg, completely intact but utterly abandoned. The French Coast Guard boarded the ship and found no sign of struggle. The table was set and everything was in order, except the entire crew had vanished. The last entry in the captain's log was from when they left port, with no mention of distress. The leading theory? Well, it was a German U-boat attack. In World War I, U-boat crews often captured sailors before sinking their ships. But here's the mystery. The Zebrina wasn't sunk, and the crew never appeared on prisoner lists. It's as if they vanished into thin air. With the war raging, authorities dropped the case, and the ship was eventually dismantled. But over a century later, the fate of the Zebrina's crew remains one of the sea's eeriest unsolved mysteries. What do you think? Number 5. San Jose. The San Jose, a Spanish treasure galleon, set sail in 1708 as part of the annual fleet collecting gold, silver, and emeralds from South America. But near Cartagena, the British Navy caught up, leading to a brutal battle at sea. Suddenly, the San Jose exploded, killing almost 600 men instantly. Historians still debate the cause, a stray cannonball, a gunpowder mishap, or sabotage. But the result was the same. Billions in treasure sunk to the ocean floor. For centuries, it was the holy grail of shipwrecks. Then, in 2015, Colombia found it but kept its location a secret to fend off looters. Now, it's the subject of legal battles. Colombia wants to display the treasure. Spain claims it as national heritage, and indigenous groups argue their ancestors mined that gold under forced labor. Whatever happens next, one thing's for sure. Whoever claims San Jose's treasure is walking away with history's most valuable sunken fortune. Number 4. German High Seas Fleet. In June 1919, Germany's once mighty High Seas Fleet met its bizarre fate in Scapa Flow, Scotland. As part of the World War I surrender terms, dozens of German warships were interned by the Royal Navy, left floating like expensive hostages while peace talks dragged on in Paris. These ships weren't built for long-term living, and after a few weeks, conditions became miserable. Most of the crews were sent home, leaving only skeleton crews behind. Then, Rear Admiral Ludwig von Reuter received bad intel. He believed war was reigniting. Unwilling to let Germany's warships fall into enemy hands, he ordered the entire fleet scuttled on June 21, 1919. Within hours, 52 warships sank beneath Scapa Flow. The British were furious, but the Germans had ensured their own fleet went down on their own terms, a final act of defiance. Number 3, HMS Vixen. Built in 1864, HMS Vixen had all the makings of a powerful ironclad warship, except for one problem: it was ridiculously slow. After disappointing sea trials, the Royal Navy deemed both Vixen and its twin, Viper, unseaworthy. Instead of scrapping them, the British towed them to Bermuda in 1888, turning them into floating defense platforms. By 1896, Vixen had lost its engines and machinery, repurposed for one final duty, blocking a narrow channel near Daniels Bay to prevent torpedo attacks. Unfortunately, this also inconvenienced friendly ships. But hey, security first. Today, Vixen's bow still juts out of the water, making it one of Bermuda's most recognizable wrecks. It's now protected, so diving requires a permit, but snorkeling and glass-bottom boat tours are popular ways to visit this quirky piece of naval history. Number 2, Peter Iredale. Oregon's coastline is home to a shipwreck straight out of a ghost story, the Peter Iredale. Its skeletal remains still sit in the sand, rusting away like the bones of a giant sea monster. Built in the late 19th century, this four-masted steel bark was owned by Iredale and Porter. In 1906, while sailing from Mexico to Portland to pick up wheat, the ship encountered a ferocious storm. Blown off course, it ran aground near Clatsop Beach. Despite the dramatic wreck, no lives were lost. The ship was left to rot in the sand, slowly transforming into a haunting landmark. Today, its remains are one of Oregon's most photographed sights, especially at sunset, when the rusting hulk looks almost supernatural. If you visit, you'll see it still refusing to disappear over a century later. Number 1, Le Griffon. Hundreds of ships rest beneath the Great Lakes, but Le Griffon, the first of them all, remains the most elusive. Built in 1679 by French explorer René Robert Cavelier, Sieur de La Salle was meant to map uncharted waters, and maybe even lead to the Pacific. The maiden voyage launched on August 7, 1679, with La Salle and 32 men. By September 18th, they reached an island, where La Salle disembarked. He sent Le Griffon back to Niagara with 6 crewmen and a valuable cargo of furs. The ship was never seen again. Theories range from a storm to a Native American attack, but whispers soon emerged. Men wearing furs identical to those on board. Even La Salle suspected treachery, believing the crew had scuttled the ship and vanished with the loot. Today, explorers still hunt for Le Griffon, but every discovery turns out to be wrong. If you've enjoyed this video, like and subscribe. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you very soon.